In terms of biological gateways, when the first insects arrived on the planet, they opened a gateway, an enormous gateway, flew wide open to diversity. And with a few ancestral insects, today there are almost 1 million known species of insects, more species than all other species combined. So they're hugely, there was a gateway to biodiversity that you saw.
Yeah. And it just blew up in my head.
Well, I'll tell you a story about gateways that I studied for a couple of seasons. A little wasp, doesn't sting, stingless wasp, doesn't live in colonies like yellow jackets. And they live in sandy areas like dunes and shores of Lake Michigan or sandy patches that rivers and streams have laid down. And they'll emerge in the springtime from a burrow that's about that deep, not in spring, but in the early summer when things get hot. And they'll come out and take a few meals, flowers, and flower nectar and so forth. And males and females, but the males only live a couple of weeks. Mother Nature says, you know, contribute to the genome and I'll see you later. So there are these groups of, they're not really groups, female wasps in these sand dunes. Let's focus on one. She'll start her life by choosing a spot and starting to dig a burrow like the one she came out of. And she'll dig for a little while and then she'll fly like this and dig 4 legs, shooting sand out behind her. And she'll fly every once in a while. And then when she finishes, a few hours later, she'll cover over that gateway and go searching for pieces. She lays an egg in the burrow, so she brings things back to feed it, which is usually carrying dead insects, dead spiders, that sort of thing. But she has to find her way back to that gateway. And if you look at the sand around it, there are no features, you can't see it. But what she's been doing with those flights is memorizing, if she were here, she'd be memorizing where you are and in the distance. So she can fly and bring back her provisions for the young using that information for that gateway. Then she starts another one. So she has to kind of forget that first memory and build a new one, and she'll do that 8 or 9 times during the summer. And then when September's gate appears, she disappears, like Charlotte and Charlotte's Web. She leaves behind her offspring and goes off into the mists. But gateways, you know, are an important part of her lifestyle.
Down here in the south, especially, the dirt daubers, they're in everything.
What are?
Dirt daubers.
The mud daubers.
Mud daubers.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Some of them will make clumps, others will make funnel,
Yeah, I've got some in my garage.
straws.
Yeah, and they have to go back and forth. They've got that gateway for their young that they have to find. They'll go off and get mud or capture the prey that they capture. They've got to find their way back. So if they're in my garage, they know where my windows are and the runners for the doors are or whatever, they look at. But that's the gateway for them.
Is there another name?
I always called them dirt daubers. I grew up with them. Just with that.
Aren't they kind of wasps? Like, they're wasps.
They're wasps,
But they don't sting.
You see these little mud tracks
Oh, the-
on
The little
buildings?
med,
It looks like pottery kind of.
yeah, and they're kind of in tubes, and they can even like make 4 or 5 side by side and even start building on top of tubes, I've
But
seen.
eastern bluebirds will do the same.
They're they're black bodies.
Yeah, and they're not aggressive.
No, they're not aggressive, they don't sting.
You just have to clean your stupid nests off everything.
How about this for a gateway? There are wasps that hunt tarantulas.
Yes, down.
And they're almost Halloween-like. They have orange rims and black bodies, and they're big. I mean, you put one in your hand, and they have to be big, But it's interesting to consider their gateways. They're not as advanced as the little sand wasps, but they have their own gateways, and consider the behavioral gateways. She sees they're always she, like the males don't live long, sees a tarantula that releases behavior where she attacks the tarantula and stings it. Then the next gateway is she's going to drag that around until she finds a spot where she can put it in a burrow. She'll dig a burrow. She doesn't have to find it again, since it's one trip only. But that releases the behavior to dig a burrow, then that releases a gateway to the behavior that stores the spider, releases the gateway to laying an egg on it, and then releases the let's go do it again gateway. So in the insect world, there are countless gateways to behavior. I guess there are in anything. I mean, gateways in the seed, for example. take a bean seed, which is a collection of gateways. You plant it in soil, moist enough, warm enough, and it opens 3 genetic gateways, roots, stems, and leaves. But gateways to buds and blossoms are still shut. After a while, it's mature enough, I don't know how it knows how to do this, but it'll make a blossom, and then the fruit. And the leaves are interesting too, because without gateways in those leaves, we wouldn't be here. There's a gateway that lets the sunlight energy in and transmits it to many, many molecular steps, gateways, eventually producing the sugar that powers most life on Earth. So we're all solar powered. You know.
In the concept there, the experience that I have today is a gateway to a new phase of my life.
That's right.
So as a toddler, my mother's teaching me things as a gateway.
Oh,
Then
that's
I go to
gateways.
school, which is a new gateway, and college, a new gateway of places I can venture to,
Yeah.
directions to take my life in. So every experience is a gateway to
To
the
the
next.
next one, yeah. And I thought, he painted this over a period of 10 years from the time he was 53 to 63. And the title, Gateway to September, he may well have considered that that was his September in his life.
Are you an entomologist? Or-
Yeah, well, I'm once an entomologist, always an
All right.
entomologist. I love insects.
Well, we're all
That was my formal
entomologists.
study. Yeah.
Right, okay, so what made you want to become an entomologist? Like, what brought you in that direction?
I took a course in entomology, and the guy was just really inspirational. You know, it's one of those teacher things
Uh-huh.
where this fellow just
Inspired.
inspired you, you know, just showed you the neat stuff. And I was lucky enough to be in a department where there was a pioneer in neurobiology who was studying insect behavior, but how the function of nerves in an insect work with the whole body. And he was studying classic work. He noticed that in his backyard in Concord there were night-flying moths, and there were also bats. And he accidentally jiggled his keys near a moth once and dove. Or is it dived? Are there English teachers here?
I go with those.
And he thought, what does that mean, you know? And it turns out that the sounds emitted by bats are about the same frequency as the sounds emitted by his key. And then he discovered that most moths, I guess, but these moths had 2 tympani, an ear on each side under the wings. And when bats emitted their sounds, they could hear those sounds. And he could put wires up, connect up to the nerves and see how many impulses. But if a moth can tell with just 4 nerve cells in 2 ears whether a bat is above or below, behind, to the right or the left, and how close. If it's real close, lots of nerve spikes go up. If it's to the right, there's more nerve activity on the right than on the left. So they can, with just 4 nerve cells, and we have trillions, you know, they could tell. And when a bat gets too close, the message is, the gateway released is dive. And so more survive than would otherwise. Pretty interesting stuff.
So what caught your fascination? Like, what insect fascinates you?
Wasps.
Wasps. Okay.
Because they have so many, every insect has its own mind, you know.
Yeah.
People ask, do insects have brains? And they do.
Yeah, of course.
And some of these wasps, like this little one, can do so many complicated things. In the sand dunes, you know, how do they do it? What are they thinking about? And that fascinated me.